Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of Poker Face Episode 3, The Stall. This was actually directed by Ian B. Macdonald and written by Wyatt Kane, so it's the first one where Rian Johnson doesn't direct or write. Now, just want to throw at the top, I really appreciate anyone who can subscribe. I'm doing every episode of Poker Face. It helps me in so many ways. With so many shows out nowadays and competitive YouTube channels, I could really use the help. I'm trying to hit 30K so I can get that Rotten Tomatoes approval, so that would be really, really helpful if you subscribe. So let's jump into this. I like they did a misdirect at the top in this episode because it opens right when George, now we know, after he watched Okja, which was great because that was given to him by Charlie, which sent all the events of this episode and changed George to not want to do meat anymore and become vegan. What was great about this opening scene, though, was the train blaring. That was a nice touch right when George was walking the field. It's like the first thing you hear in the episode, and that will come full circle. But what I'm talking about the misdirect is when we see George, who we know is Charlie, he's talking to, says, "I am a murderer," and it's actually his brother Taffy, who we meet, played by Little Rel. Now, I had interviewed Little Rel about a year ago for a Netflix movie. A really, really cool guy, but he's super talented. But I thought this was, like, really awesome how well he played a villain here. Like, really enjoyed his performance. And not just him, but the character of Mandy. So, what was so interesting about the villains in this episode to me was they were just purely awful people, but also that Mandy was the mastermind here. There's a scene in this episode when her and Taffy are kissing that he's like, "You thought of this all." So we know from the start that Mandy was the one who kind of orchestrated everything and Taffy's the one who saw it through. And the reason Taffy and Mandy are so motivated is because they owe a lot of people money. Taffy took loans out. He's not good with finances and made clear. And they showed people watching him and he's in this tough spot, he thinks. So he decides to brutally kill his own brother by poisoning him in his own trailer. But I like when you rewatch an episode like this, seeing all the things that Taffy was plotting out, like him pre-recording the episode in the car of his radio show that he was using as an alibi. He also did check in with George to see if he changed his mind literally mere hours before killing him. But what was really fascinating when you rewatch and you catch things that they throw at you quickly is that when Taffy was leaving and playing the pre-record, he quickly changed his mind and turned off the mic being a hot mic being live and just played the pre-record itself. Now, if he actually went out the window and didn't do that, he would have got away with this because if he had left the mic live on, it would have caught the train sound. So they had alluded to that at the end when Charlie's figuring out the case, that they showed the shot of the mic turned off. So I thought that was a really nice touch. Now, what brought the humor out in this episode, and it was my favorite character episode, was this dog, the MAGA dog, the fascist dog. He loves conservative talk radio, which I thought was hysterical, and he stops barking when Charlie puts it on. But when they're actually first listening to the radio together, that's where she hears about the truth train that every hour on the quarter. So what's cool about this show in general is Charlie hears a lot of little things that will come back later that don't seem important, but they will be. So everything you're observing counts here. And the dog is what leads her to meet Taffy. And what I love about this show, and especially in this episode, is so many setups and payoffs. I'm a big believer in having payoffs to make things feel more satisfied and come full circle, and the show is great at that. That starts here too, where they plant the whole thing about Taffy liking this floss and George not liking it, and that it's the air horn at the symphony. And I love later on when she finds the floss in the trailer, they're playing air horns. And it was cool to even use the floss as like part of the murder scene. That was pretty sick. And also George talking about stalling and how important that is when you're doing your barbecue, and that she will do that to Taffy later. She'll stall him to wait for Mandy to come there and rat him out. And also what I took as when he was saying the one thing I do know, and he goes, "I'll tell you later," when George was talking to Charlie, he was planning to go to California because she finds a map in the trailer when he was dead. That was a map of California. And it also told her that he wasn't planning to actually kill himself like the police report said. She also notices when Mandy is lying about the paprika, that will come back, and that was just a small moment again, which seems like it means nothing, and later on it means so much. And then even the pecan, right? The pecan wood. That was so funny when she was at the doctor's office, when she found the dog, brought him to the vet, and the vet was just like, "What the F are you doing?" when she starts licking the pecan wood. That was great. And also that has jackal in him, so that tooth they found in the ashes comes full circle as well. So again, this episode is just super tight at all these little things adding to the mystery and figuring out what happened. I also love this dog's personality, that he wants Charlie to avenge him. I love watching Natasha Lyonne work with a dog, and he will stay in the car when she puts the conservative radio back on. And I also like the scene between Mandy and Charlie talking, because you just learn more about Mandy and how just off of a person she is, and that she was actually so angry about her husband not wanting to kill animals anymore. And then there's this nice twist that this radio impersonator was the person doing the conservative radio and doing the knitting, and that he will help Charlie in the end. And I love we get to see too that Charlie tested out that he could do everything he did in 16 minutes while that radio show was playing. That was really funny. And what was brilliant was the way she caught them this episode. It was the best way she caught anyone so far, where she had the radio impersonator do Taffy's voice to spook Mandy, and then by spooking her, she actually selfishly rats him out before he would go to the police if she thought it was really him, and blames everything on Taffy, which is what's going to get him in trouble. And then she thinks she got away with it, and then they play on the radio her confession, so they get both of them. That was great. And it's a nice moment where he's saying, in the conservative radio, in the humor of it all, that shout out to the truth tellers, and it shows Charlie, but then it shows the dog, who's also the truth teller in this episode. I thought that was such a great touch. And to me, surprisingly, I think this was my favorite episode, episode 3. I didn't expect that. Usually episode 3s are a little slower, not as popular in a series like this, but I thought this was the standout so far. I've only seen the first 3, so please don't spoil any other episodes, but this was just super tight to me, and I think what made it even stronger was having these, I think, the best villains so far in the show with Taffy and Mandy, and I think it was just the most tight with all the pieces and everything counting, and just the most interesting, and again, like I said, Charlie's best way of catching them with the impersonator. And I also think, again, like every episode has great humor with Natasha Lyonne and with the dog. So really, really good episode. It makes me even more excited for what's to come. So again, please make sure to subscribe. Leave your comments below. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. And please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more of me. And I'll see you next time.